What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Halftime Snacks podcast. This show features short interviews that you can listen during the halftime of your favorite sports events. Every Tuesday, I host fun conversations with talented people in the sports industry where we'll learn from their stories, knowledge, and experiences. So go grab your favorite snack and come snack with us. Are you ready? Let's go! Joining us today is a massive legend from the sports business who has over 20 years of experience in sponsorship sales and has worked for world-class brands in the NBA, the NFL, the MLB, the NCAA, and the NBAG. He has also experience working at diverse sports tech and media projects at companies like Learfield, Media Brokers, and the On-Track Sports app. He's been working at Sportsdigita for about 4 years, and he was recently promoted to Senior Vice President of Sports. He works with professional teams across the world to help them improve their storytelling through great presentation. I can't wait for this conversation, ladies and gentlemen, so allow me to introduce Doug Holtzman. Doug, how are you, man? Welcome to the Halftime Snacks.
Well, thank you for having me. Longtime fan of the show, and I'm so excited to have some great conversations with you.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to have you here. The way we kick it off with the halftime snacks is through an icebreaker. The one I have for you, it's what is the craziest sports moment in your life? What is the craziest sports moment in your memory?
Whew. Well, look, I'm a Chicago Cub fan, born and raised, so I've got to go crazy, and I go right toward 2016, Game 7 of the World Series in Cleveland, and the Cubs clinched it because the Cubs and my family have gone back 3+ generations. And every year we'd always start by saying, this is going to be our year, right? And it happened a lot. And when that final out was put out, holy cow, literally from Harry Carey saying that. So I'm going crazy with the Chicago Cubs 2016.
Yeah, and you mentioned it's funny because you mentioned your family 3 generations going back. You grew up in a family that is very sports oriented, and maybe that's partially the reason why you're so much involved in the sports industry. You maybe want to talk a little bit about that. How was that growing up? How that exactly like pointed you towards the things that you were interested, or how that formed and built your personality to who you became and who you are today.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Because I always talk to kids that are getting in the business, like, oh, why do you want to work in sports? And they're always like, I'm a big sports fan, whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, let me just tell you my life, right? And I literally was born into a sports family. I mean, my dad was a pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals in the minor leagues. His brother, my uncle Kenny, was a famous pitcher, pitched 15 years in the major leagues, 5 World Series rings, 2 no hitters. They were all from St. Louis, and that's where I grew up. So, growing up, literally as I'm playing, they're like, "Oh, here's another Holtzman coming up. What's going to happen here?" And I always knew that if I couldn't make it on the field, I was going to make it on the business side of sports. I just always knew I never thought about having a non-sports career on this one.
Yeah, that should have been a lot of pressure, right? Because maybe you did grow up going to practice and trying to become that sports icon that you're talking about, but then maybe you find this different passion on the business side. Was that something that you were thinking like from since you were a kid, like yeah, I'm gonna be in the business side of sports as well, or was that something that started to like build up as you went?
I think it was a combination of both. My goal in life was to play in the major leagues. There was no question. Like from day one, that's what I wanted to do. Once I had a bum arm, so but I always say is my uncle got the fastball and he made it to the major leagues. My dad got the changeup and made it to the minor leagues, and I got the looks, but it got me freaking nowhere, right? But but I that was my focus right there. But I knew, like, in with my dad and with my uncles, like, you have to have a post career no matter what. So whether my post career started at 20 years old or started at 30 or 40 years old. So what I did is at a young age, I developed some great mentors that literally helped me in my life. One of my first mentors, what was Marty Hendon. He's the PR great, and he passed away a few years ago with the St. Louis Cardinals. And he was a legend. And literally, it's small world. My mom and him went to high school together, so way back in the 1960s, went to high school together and knew each other ever since. But he knew when I was 8 years old that I wanted to go work in sports, you know. And then from there, Mark Sauer, who what he ran the Pittsburgh Pirates, the St. Louis Cardinals, the St. Louis Blues, his son Peter, who actually passed away as well, and I played AAU basketball together. And Mark knew from day one what I wanted his job. And it's funny, he would always tell me, he's like, do not work in sports, go get a real job. And then maybe later come back. And he used to tell me that all these days. Then, fast forward 10, 15, 20 years later, he's like, hey, you know what? I'm proud of you. Proud of you what you did. But always developed mentors. Steve Shanwald, who ran the Chicago Bulls, to me, he's one of the top 5 sports execs of all time. He got there in a pretty good time, the Bulls, when a guy named MJ came along, and stayed there for 20 plus years. So, but he taught me a lot of things. And it's really surround yourself with good people, right? And all these guys started doing this, and I'm listening to them, I'm taking it in. I always say, be a student of the game, be a sponge. And I was a sponge when I was 10 years old, and I was fortunate with my family is being put in rooms with a lot of people in sports that have heavy influence. And I took it all in and knew like, hey, someday this is going to help me.
Yeah, they say it's a combination of both the environment where you're at and also the interest, right? If it's not of your interest, then maybe it could be put out next to like the biggest sports executives or the most the best ones at the business. But then if you're not really interested, then it's a combination of two. And it seems like from what you're telling us, it seems like that was your case. And it's interesting you bring up the mentors thing because I'm curious, like how do you think people should think about mentors? Because this is something that you see that often, right? Like people, finishing, graduating and starting, a job or something, and everyone tells them like, oh, you should find a mentor or something. But then it maybe becomes, the mindset of a transactional thing, right? I have to give them something so that they can give me something, or like I think that many people struggle with this, and it seems like in your career was a very important thing. So how exactly should people think about mentors, or how to find them so that it can really, really provide the most benefit to all the involved, and of course to the guy that's trying to build up a career in sports?
What I realized early, right, is first of all, you always want to be a good people, right? And no one wants to be friends and help assholes. Sorry, I use that term, but no one wants to really help it, right?
Right.
So, but and I kind of forced myself because look, these people I saw that were like, okay, this is the top of the profession. And if and they're taking me in on their wing and giving me great advice. But the best thing I could ever say about any mentor, right? When you talk to your parents and your family, they're never going to tell you that your poop stinks, right? They're everything's going to be so sugar coated. Oh, great, great, great. And when you have a mentor, they're going to tell you the good, they're going to tell you the bad, they're going to tell you the ugly. So, and they're looking out for you in your career, at the end of the day. And that was so key to me, for this. And I continue to get mentors. When I went to the New Orleans Saints, there was a guy there, Mike Fader, who was kind of like the king of minor league baseball, who then went to the NFL. And like, not only did he kind of take me in almost as his son when I was there, like that, but he mentored me, and he still does to this day. And Jim Woodrum, when I was with IMG College, which is now Learfield right there, same thing. We became great friends and mentors, and he mentors me to this day. So, again, these are the people that look out for your career. Again, is they listen to you, and they listen to everything that you say. They don't just have blinders on. And I've always utilized that. And now I know in my career, it's my turn to give back, right? Big head, I've had a pretty good career and it's been a fun career, but it's my turn to give back to people because I know I couldn't probably have gotten here without the help of so many. And it kind of pisses me off when I've got buddies of mine that aren't giving back, because I remind them, I was like, hey, look, when you were 24, you knew each other and I knew the struggles that you were going through. Now you're older, like it's time for you to get back. Like you have to remember that. And that's so key right there.
Yeah, I love that. And as I mentioned in the intro, I mean, you really became a legend. You brought already over 100 million in sales, and sponsorship sales is what you do. It's what you do best, probably the best in the business. How would you describe your skill set? I'm very interested in how do you see your skills as working someone who works in sponsorship sales. What skills? Maybe if you can think about two or three, the main skills that have proven useful throughout your career, and why do you think those are the most important ones?
First of all, and I learned this long time ago, right? First, never lie to somebody. It's going to come back to you. And you're going to laugh when I say this. A lot of places where I learned what not to do. And that's how I kind of learned what I needed to do is by learning what not to do. As I'm watching again, I've always watched. I'm watching all the time. I always took off my blinders. I'm looking around and I'm seeing what this person's doing and that person's doing. I'm like, okay, kind of like that, but I really don't like that and this. But at the end of the day, right? Be honest. Be honest with people. And then I came up to like 4 or 5 things. I think about that every single day. I thought about it 20 years ago and I still think about it today. Number one is be patient, right? You have to be patient. Number two is I give people what they want. And that's so big, right? Because it really pisses me off when I see people like literally, let's say sponsorship sales, giving people something that they don't want or need. Like that's not good. They don't just sell to sell.
Right.
And I focus on them and not on me. I could give two craps about me. My job is to make them look good. That means I did my job. Simple as that, right? And if you really keep about those things, then at the end of the day is what's their return on investment? What is the return on investment? ROI is so good. That's everything. So when I sell, I focus on those four things and I always go back to that. And I have to remind myself, hey, go back, ask those questions. They're going to tell you what they want and need. Go give them what it and focus on that return on investment. You did your job there. Make them look good. If you do that,
And I feel like you also like have that attitude to keep learning, because I feel like many people in the industry, like I've seen people that reach a point where they feel like they've seen it all, but I'm sure that you see new things. I mean, from the way that you're telling us this, you see new things with every new client or every new day at the office. So it feels like that is a very important key of just. Uh, Keep building up on someone's career. And it's funny that you mentioned a little bit about like what not to do, right? The whole like failure element of learning and building skills. I was actually curious if you could maybe share a story of one of your most painful lessons, or on what happened, whatever happened to you throughout your career, or during the sales process, or during a story that maybe you want to share on your career, and that could maybe bring some insights or lessons for starters to be very aware of that, so that not everyone
yeah.
commits that failure again.
Look, I fail all the time, right? And but you know what? I try. I'm going to try no matter what, right? Here's how I break down this to every person ever asked me, and you probably have heard this a lot, right? The best hitters in baseball, Hall of Fame players, failed 7 out of 10 times, 70%. Think about that, right? Hall of Fame players, 70 freaking percent. So if again, you've got it, you're going to fail. You're going to fail. Try hard, work your butt off, but you are going to fail no matter what, right? And I'm a very goal oriented person, and I always have been, always been. I think that comes back to what's in my blood from having this sports in my blood. I mean, if you beat me in something, that's great. I have fun, but I'm gonna go beat you next time, right? I'm gonna go after you, and I've always taken that mentality. Like even to this day, if someone brings in something for at Sportsdigita, which is awesome, right? I'm high fiving them and everything, and then I'm saying, all right, it's my turn, dude. It's my turn now. Yeah, let's rock. But I've always been that way. Um, you know, I could tell you about kind of a group failure that turned into a very good positive, is back in my New Orleans Saints days. When I first got there, I was actually the youngest corporate salesman in all of the NFL. So, there's 30 teams, there's a lot of salesmen, and I'm the young, right? That's over here. So I couldn't just come in cocky right there. I had to come in and freaking prove myself because, I remember my intern who's actually got hired by him and still there, 20 plus years later. He was 5, 6, 7 years older than I was. Like that's weird, right? When we start looking at that's weird. So I remember I'm in sponsorships and I'm looking up kind of these companies thinking, I did a lot of research. I mean, I'm a research guy. And I'm like, man, this company Zatarain's, it's a rice and spice company and was one of the biggest rice and spice companies in the world out of New Orleans. I'm like, they're not a, they're not affiliated at all with the New Orleans Saints. I'm like, this is crazy, right? And I remember I went to my boss and I was like, hey man, why aren't they a sponsor? Like this is crazy. Like this is totally like this is two and two together literally will get you four, right? You're like this is a perfect mix. And he's like, oh, they hate us. Like they blah 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 blah, and he just went off and off and off and off. He's like, there's no way in heck that you're ever gonna they can't stand us, whatever. So that was kind of that the organization kind of failed. Like he's like, they hate our owner, they hate us, they hate blah 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 blah. Well, that kind of turned me on right there, and I was like, all right, it's my turn, let's do it. And I remember I set up I called the president of the company, and I was like, look, you don't know who I am. I'm Doug, with the New Orleans Saints, but do me a favor, let's have a conversation. I'm going to come over. I'll bring some beer, and we're just going to chat once. And this was before like the digital age. And what I did was, just so you know, is I taped a bunch of New Orleans Saints games. And the reason I did is I wanted to show him some of these games and talk about signage. And the reason I wanted to talk about signage is when I got there, we were hosting the Super Bowl. We were going to then host the BCS National Championship game. We were going to then host, which BCS at that time, we were then going to host the Final Four and the Sugar Bowl and all these other stuff. And by the way, there's the Saints as well, right? So I'm in his office. I'm like, and I'm like, all right, area grievances, let's go. And he told me why he hated us and all the good stuff. We start talking more and more. And I was like, let's just do me a favor. Like, here's a beer. Let's go watch this game real quick. And we're watching a game, the Saints game. I keep on pausing it, having conversations with him, but I'm pausing it on purpose. And he goes, why do you keep on pausing it? Like, just Doug was like, you see that spot right there? Imagine your sign being there. And he's like, yeah, but that's the Saints game. I'm like, forget the Saints. Like right now, if you called it, I think it was on at NBC at the time, a Super Bowl spot is going to cost you, I think their time was like $2 million a spot for a 30-second spot. So then if you did this, I just started doing the math, right? And I was like, hey, by the way, imagine if your sign was up there for all this stuff, all of it, the whole, and it's funny, right? And I saw his eyes. He starts thinking like, holy cow. And it's like, by the way, it's only going to cost you X, not Y. It's going to cost you X. And I remember, when we started talking, it took him a couple months and they signed. And this was my first really big deal. This was my first 6+ figure deal that I did in my career. And I remember coming back and everyone's like, how the heck did you get it in this? And you don't want to brag, right? But I was like, look, I listened to him, whatever. I know what his wants and his needs were and what he needed to do to accomplish what they were going to do. And so fast forward it a couple months, after the season, yet we host the Super Bowl. And that was the 9/11 Super Bowl. After 9/11, when it was like the biggest concert on earth was halftime on that one. And it was this little band, U2, performed. And that's where Bono opened up his shirt and had the American flag in there. When he does that, just so you know, as everyone's crying, they're putting the words of or the names of all the people that happened that died during 9/11. Opens up his shirt. There's the United States in a patch in there, and just in the background, literally behind that is the Zatarain sign. And the guy's phone like blew up. It was, I mean, it's watched over and over. I mean, it's had
Yeah.
hundreds of millions of views on this one. So it's crazy, right? And so I turned that failure of the team and turned it into a
Yeah.
heck of a positive right there. And it's funny. I'll talk to him every now and then. We always bring it up. Like that. He's like, because that helped him in his career. I made him look good. Simple as that, right?
No, that's great. That's a great story, and I think that even within there's like tons of different stories and lessons on there. I mean, for starters, the whole like listening thing and the whole like not giving up despite being said no. It's funny how many times like founders, startups go and try to raise money and try to convince and you never know who's gonna say yes, who's gonna eventually gonna give you the opportunity, and it's great to see how early in your career you were able to get that confidence to step up and do that. I think it's awesome. And you've been in this like whole like storytelling business for a while. You've worked with many different clients, many different brands that are all over the world and that have a very important presence. And I'm sure that many they ask you like what is a good story, or how do you differentiate a good from a bad story. So do you have like a specific mental framework or some mental model, some points, key points that you use to like be quick and know if a story looks good or not that you maybe want to share with us?
Yeah, 100%. So it's funny. I've always worked for tough teams. When I say tough, like tough markets. When you're working for the New Orleans Saints, yeah, it's great. It's the biggest in that region, but you're talking about a nothing city it's not a top 20 city like that by any means.
Yeah,
Then I go to the Tampa Bay Rays, and I mean, like, you walk out on a Tuesday and you could count the people in the stands, right? And then you go, to Houston with the Rockets for the Yao Ming era. And by the way, Yao gets hurt. Holy crap. Like, talking about a bombshell right there. So I've always worked for tough ones, which is great, which is great because I had to learn a lot of things. And, and then after my post team career, I ran one of the top 10 advertising agencies, one of their sports departments there. And, I'm buying back a lot of stuff now. And what I could tell you just from that, first of all, is people have no attention span, especially now. I don't. I'm going to give you literally, like, if you pitch me, when I say 2 minutes, that's probably a minute and a half max. Too much, right? I mean, like, I'm not going to give you a lot because my attention span is, I have zero attention span. I'm going to move on to so many different things. So I realized that. And I realized that too when I was selling. So that little time that I could have with someone, you got to make it count. But the biggest thing of storytelling is, and I always say this, and I'm going to cuss a little, don't make shit up. You've got to tell an accurate story, but a real story. Tell it. Tell the story that people want to hear those stories, right? And I have real life stories and examples. So, for instance, like in what I do today with Sportsdigita, when I'm talking to a team and they're asking about, well, what happens, from a sponsorship standpoint, after the season's done and blah blah blah, and I go like instantly, right? Because I kind of have three or four stories. I'm like, oh, this fits this story easily. I'm like, well, Drew King at the Atlanta Braves, when they won the World Series, obviously, like, less than a month later, baseball is quote unquote shut down because the lockout happened, and then a team literally could not use any of its players. Like, NIL was for in Major League side was history right there. They had to get rid of them. And then fast forward, right, to March, and all of a sudden, boom, it's open. So they had to start retelling that story because, I mean, think about attention spans, 1 to 2 minutes. Well, this was 5 months of winning the World Series and they couldn't do anything, right? And now they have to tell that story. And boom, they told that story and they got out because you've got to hit people, right? Always focus on return on investment and everything. But with that story is, remember their heart. Everyone's got one, right? And they went to that heart. I remember I was there for the World Series for it. Even though I'm a Cub fan, my family here is all Braves fans right there, and we had a great time. But you remembered that, and I always say so. Don't be afraid, right, to go to that story and tell it. Tell the truth. Don't lie. You are going to get caught when you lie. There's no question for that one. But and that's what I help people do. But when in the story, it's you've got to tell your story, but then you're working with your company, right? Because now you've got social media that's telling that story. Each and every second of the day. You've got the digital side, advertising side, and then you're pitching your pitch decks, whether it's your sponsorship sales or your ticket sales or your recruiting side when they're going after the free agent. You always have to tell that story. So again, go back to be genuine. Don't lie, right? And again is think about this right here, your heart, right? In their heart. And that's what you got to hit at the end of the day.
And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that you kind of like have to be very personal with every brand. You have to understand where they're coming from. You have to understand what their motives are and what would be the best solution for someone like them. And my guess is that it requires a little bit of creativity and be able to connect the dots pretty quickly for you. So I wonder if there's any specific areas or sources of inspiration that you draw this creative work for yourself? Do you like read specific type of books, or follow specific type of authors
Yeah.
or artists, or like what are you into? That what where do you source your inspiration to deliver creative work for these companies?
I it's funny. I'm not a reader of books. My wife is, my kids, they definitely are, but I am not a reader of books, but I am a reader. So and I wake up early, like by 5 o'clock I'm up, it's just so I'm constantly looking at different sites and I go on Google News and I definitely looking obviously the business and technology and entertainment and sports, health, et cetera. Right. And I'm seeing what's going on in the world right here. Right. And then I'm always on LinkedIn. Um, People that aren't using LinkedIn, like, oh, what are you doing? Like literally, like it's the best place by far, and it's free, mind you. It's freaking free. Now you could pay for some of it, more of its services, but it's free. And I'm looking what companies are doing. I'm looking about, is it working? Is it not working? Right. I'm always looking and adjusting and saying, okay, look what trends are starting to happen. So obviously now, like the big hot trends, in the sponsorship world, you've got sports gambling. So right, that trend is like, it is that train left the station, like it's there. And now you got these CBD oils that you could do, that the legal ones, right? That's starting to be. And then all these, and obviously then when you go down to the college and high school market is the NIL. Like that is a game changer. It's crazy. But I'm reading, I'm studying it, I'm talking to people about it, and every time I'm having this conversation, I'm learning more and more. So again, I'm becoming a sponge in that one and then think about ways that I could help, right? And that's the fun part right there, is how can I help in X, Y, or Z, and that's what I like to do. I have fun doing it. And if I wasn't having fun doing it, I'd be doing something else. Right. And I always say, but it gives me, it kind of excites me because there's a problem out there. And then I look at it and how I could fix that problem or whatever that is. Right. And whatever that topic is, how can I fix it? How can I help? How can I help that person that's involved in there? And I think about this all the time, every day in my career.
And it's funny because, tying that back to the mentors conversation that we were having right at the beginning, right? How you go and actively try to listen from the ones that know exactly, that have the experience, and that you're trying to learn all the time. It shows that you're very consistent in matter of being actively looking to learn from people, but also from what other people are doing, that you can't really maybe get in touch with people, I don't know, in the Middle East, or that are in different sports or in culture or in entertainment or in different areas or sectors or industries, that maybe there's nothing that you guys have in common, but through the work that they deliver, you're able to, absorb and learn and see and take that into like your mental filter that eventually is going to, it's funny because we're not aware of how our ideas are interacting within, like, inside of our brain, but once they're in, that maybe something new is going to come up. Maybe you're going to come up with a better solution for a client, and you don't know this, but in 2 weeks you're going to know, because it's that whole element of creativity that is just astounding of how it works. I'm really, like, curious to ask you, Doug, like, why are you in Sportsdigita? Like, why is it for you? Why is the best place for Doug Holtzman, who is a legend of sponsorship sales, and that has, worked with over, hundreds of clients? Why Sportsdigita is the place for you?
Well, it's funny, I've got a wife and I have two girls, and I realized something a long time ago, and it's something that just bothers the crap out of me, that in sports and also in technology, the way women are treated, and it really affects me. And I didn't think about it as much. I knew it was there, but then when you get married, okay, that's something different. Then you have two kids, and they happen to be girls, something there. And I've seen the way that women are treated, and that's disgusting in there. And I've kind of made it my mission to help as many women get in that position, because I want it to be in later on where I don't, you're the best person is hired. I hate when, so like when the general manager was hired in Miami, right? She's freaking awesome. If she was a man, she should have been there 12 years ago. It took her 12 more years to get that position. And she knows more crap than everybody else. I'm telling you, like, she's the bomb, right? Like, so overqualified. Why did it take her 12 years? That's wrong. That's wrong. I want to be where she's hired 12 years ago. It doesn't matter by your color, your ethnicity, doesn't matter anything, right? And I want that to be where we don't just keep on saying, oh, another woman's hired. No, no, no. Get it where, like, hey, Jan Smith was just hired, and awesome, great, love it. I love it, right? So I never worked for a female. And Angelina Lawton, who's the founder and CEO of Sportsdigita, you know, she worked both on the team side and then now on the tech and agency side. She's a pioneer. Like, she's put up with a lot of shit throughout the years, and she has so much to that I'm able to take in on an everyday basis. And I'm proud to work for her too, and proud to, like, when I'm done, let's say today, that when I go and we're eating dinner and I'm talking to my girls, story about Angelina and what she does, because just so that there's no ceilings anymore. Like, I don't want there to be a ceiling for my daughters when they go and are going to work on anything in life. I don't want there to be a ceiling. Like, you can do whatever F you want to be, right? And that is what I want, right? So when that opportunity hit me, I was like, holy cow, like, she's a power player, and I can learn from her as well. And at the same time, be an example to my family, to my girls. And that's what I want. And that's why I went there. That why I decided is because, at the end of the day, where they sports stage, as I say, we work with, over 400 plus companies and 300 plus our teams, and we work with them 10 to 12, 13 different ways. So sponsorship, sales, and onboarding, and recaps, and season tickets, and season ticket renewals, and group tickets, and then on the recruiting side, the draft side, etc. So what I'm able to do is take all the stuff that I've done throughout my career and help friends at the end of the day. So, like, when I'm talking to the Atlanta Falcons, and I'm talking to, I'm going to call him Donnie Baseball, but it's Don Rovac right there. I mean, first of all, the relationship goes back to, like, birth. I mean, we've known each other literally since we were babies in St. Louis. But more importantly is, like, I've been in his shoes. So when I'm talking to people, right, I'm able to say, hey, look, I've been in your shoes. Here's how we could help. And that means so much more, because I remember when I was on the team side, I'd have these tech guys come in and they're talking to me and they're blah, 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 blah. And all I heard was, wow, 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 wow. That's all I heard, because then I'd say to them, I was like, let me ask you a question. Have you ever sold a sponsorship in your life? Really? Have you ever been, I'm like, get that, out of my office, because you're not telling me how to do something. You've never been in my shoes. Well, I've been in their shoes. So when I tell these to people, I know that I'm helping them. And that street cred of working 20 plus years on the team side has helps. So it's that perfect situation where I'm able to go in and help people. And again, is I help my friends make more money at the end of the day. Like, how cool is that? I'm not doing the outbound, like, hey, this is Doug Holtzman, blah, blah, blah. I'm calling someone and I'm having the conversation that day. I'm calling Clark Beacom with Austin FC, because Clark and I's relationship goes back to 2001 with the Saints. I mean, we know each other that, so I could have a real conversation, and he could open up to me and I could open up to him. And I think that's so key right there. And no is like, look, I've always tried to get my circle as big as possible. And I know once you're in that circle, you got to stay there too. And I'm not going to give them something that's going to jeopardize, because, my relationship with them. Again, I could sell anything to anybody, let's be honest, but I don't like to, right? I'm there to help. And by that is, hey, and then with that is I'm making them money, right? I'm getting their return on, they are getting their return on investment. And then that circle keeps on getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
That's
And
awesome.
that's why I'm at Sportsdigita.
That's awesome, and I feel like it really you pointed at all of, like, your values, all the things that you really value and that you think are important for you in your career, and that's why you keep following those. Uh, I'm honored. I'm really honored to be able to have the chance to have you on the halftime snacks. I think it's the first podcast you had under the SVP role. Not
It
sure, but
is.
I'm honored, and of course, congratulations for you. What comes after for you, Doug? How do you grow from here? Now, as a senior vice president of Sports Digita, what is next for you from here, and to where, and, like, how do you see yourself growing now from here?
Look, I'm ready to retire and move to Florida. Live the lifestyle. No, for me, honestly, it's funny. Steve Shanwald taught me this back in the early 2000s, and he said, whenever it becomes a job, leave, right? Get out of there. You go get your job anywhere, and it's your career, and really focus on that. So as long as I'm having fun there and have that, we talk about ceilings, right? No ceilings where I can continue to do stuff. What I love doing there is, again, I'm very goal oriented. And right now, Sportsdigita, let's just say on the pro side, we work with half of every pro sports team. So what's my goal? Let's go to 75% right now. All right, and then let's get that and let's go more. So my goal is to get everyone right and really put people in a place to succeed. So I'm having fun doing it. And now, with this new role is you're going to see me more out there. So you're going to see me at all the events that, and for instance, I've got to be at, during 1 week, I'll be at the Sport Techie Horizon Summit. I'll be at hashtag sports and I'll be on a panel there. And then I'll also be at ALSD, Association of Luxury Suite Directors in New York. So 1 week, 3 cities, right? But I'll be out there and really talking about it because again, is I know that what we do can help people. So I really enjoy the heck out of it. So the future to me is I want to build this company up, just so that like it becomes a household name. And I work on the sports side, which it is, but now we have this whole non-sports side that we do, and we're killing it in that side. So we work with people like Kaiser Permanente, to Humana, to the Hawaii Convention Visitors Bureau. And I don't focus on that side, but I want to be here and help them, right, as they grow that as well, because why can't that become the Sportsdigita of the B2B world? And that's so big to me. And again, and I want to help Angelina. So when she, gets right, like she becomes like, this is the number one powerful woman in sports, not just the top 30, the number one. And that's, again, help people have fun doing it.
I love it. I love it, Doug. Man, this has been so fun. Time has gone so fast on this halftime snack, but I can't leave without asking you a more personal question, and we always do that. So suppose young 18-year-old Doug was listening to this episode. What advice would you give him?
Well, I would tell this handsome gentleman, Doug Holtzman, at age 18, and many things. No, I would say this, right? And it's, I go back to what Jimmy Valvano said, right? Don't give up, don't ever give up, on that one. And that's what I've always focused on, set high goals for yourself, right? Both short term, midterm, and long term, and focus on those, right? And just because, again, is you are going to fail, we go back to that. You are going to fail. Nobody's perfect. You are going to fail, right? Keep on going. What's that song? I get knocked down, but I get up again. Like that song, the old song, right? From 10, 20 years ago. Like that's going to happen.
But play it on repeat.
100%, and have fun doing it. That's the biggest thing. Have fun. Again, I put pressure on myself, but at the end of the day, I have to have fun. And that's the biggest thing. You don't, have fun doing it. Work your butt off, but have fun.
Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy learning about the business and technology behind sports, make sure you subscribe to the Sports Tech Biz newsletter. I'll leave the link in the show notes. See you all next week. Bye-bye.